Good evening. The biggest construction project in Scotland in a generation reached a milestone today as the last deck section was lifted into place on the Queensferry crossing. A new continuous link from Fife to the Lothians has been completed and it should be open to traffic in May. Here's our chief reporter, David Cowan.
This massive project has had its ups and downs, but today was definitely an up. The last of 122 deck sections lifted inch by inch from a barge on the Forth to the bridge 45 metres above. It took 2.5 hours, but this chunk of steel and concrete weighs more than a fully loaded jumbo jet, and very fine margins were involved as it slotted into place. Up above, the cheers might have been stage managed, but the pleasure was absolutely genuine. A new bridge, one of the biggest in the world, is spanning the Forth.
All the guys here, everybody's done amazing. All the countries from all over the world come together, and this project is huge. And look at it, this is it. This is the last piece, and be rightly proud. Yes, yous boys too, Scotland, be proud. 3 amazing bridges right here.
It's taken 5 years to get to this moment. It's fair to say that there's a huge amount of pride and excitement here today, but there's also relief too. This project is now in the home straight. 80% of the workers have home addresses in Scotland, but people from 27 different nationalities have been involved.
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic.
Czech. Poland.
Originally, they'd hoped to lift all of the decks in just over a year. Instead, it took 16 months.
Finished. Happy days, folks.
It's not been the easiest place in the world to work, has it?
No, absolutely not. It's been a nightmare, to be honest with you. Scottish weather is beautiful today for February, but the wind's really taking its toll on us. So we've struggled a lot of the time, but the guys have done well. It's a good team.
The revised opening date is less than 4 months away. Much still needs to be done. They may or may not make it. But whatever happens, today saw a milestone everyone involved will never forget. David Cowan, STV News, on the Queensferry crossing.
Tributes have been paid to motor neuron disease campaigner Gordon Aikman, who's died at the age of 31. His charity, Gordon's Fight Back, united Scottish politicians to secure the promise of better legislation for sufferers. Here's our Holyrood editor, Colin Mackay.
Gordon Aikman was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in the run-up to the independence referendum in 2014 when he was working for Better Together. Since then, he's raised more than £500,000 for research.
There's no cure for the thing that's killing me, so every penny of this money will be spent on cutting-edge research into a cure for motor neuron disease. I can say, it makes me so proud to say that right here in Edinburgh today, there's research happening that wouldn't have been happening without this money.
The first indication that Gordon was ill was when he had trouble fastening buttons and dropping things. After his diagnosis, he started Gordon's Fight Back, never giving in.
He was a tireless campaigner, but he was many other things as well. A Scottish gymnast, a Labour Party activist, a great dancer and a terrible singer. But he devoted the last year or so of his life to raising awareness of this condition that was killing him, to make sure that the people after him wouldn't have to go through the pain and suffering that he did, and I think that's ultimately got to be his legacy.
Well, Gordon has transformed MND care in Scotland. There are people attending clinics today up and down the country who will now see their nurses for longer, more often, thanks to Gordon Aikman.
He persuaded me and the government to double the number of MND nurses. He secured a change in the law around voice therapy, and he raised over £500,000 for MND Scotland. So, in a short space of time, Gordon achieved so much, and his legacy will live on.
Since he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, Gordon has travelled the world, received many awards and got married.
We knew we didn't have time to waste, and one of the things that I really wanted to do was walk down the aisle. So that was one of the last times I walked down the aisle to get married.
Gordon Aikman has raised the profile of MND, funding research for a cure, all the time knowing it couldn't help him, but could help others. Gordon's Fight Back is far from over. Colin Mackay, STV News.
A £1.8 billion plan to transform the economic fortunes of Tayside and Fife has been unveiled. The Tay Cities deal could create up to 15,000 jobs over the next decade. Senior reporter Craig Miller reports.
In a plant growth facility at the James Hutton Institute, 4 council leaders hoping for another type of growth in the regional economy. This 100-page document outlines the Tay Cities deal, containing over 50 project proposals. And they could have massive potential for Tayside and Fife, with the aim of creating 15,000 jobs.
It's huge for this region. It is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to actually get the investment in place that will transform the lives of people and businesses. I think it's fair to say this is a region of huge opportunity, but not yet punching at its weight. And I think with this additional investment over the next 10 years, we can really start to make a difference to people's lives.
The document highlights opportunities and projects like oil and gas decommissioning, completion of the Cross Tay Link Road, creating an international aviation academy in Dundee, and an international barley hub to meet global food shortages. Whether it's Dundee here, Fife across the water, Perthshire over in that direction, or Angus over there, the Tay Cities deal is all about councils, business, academia and the leisure industry working in a more joined up and smarter way, and a hugely ambitious way at that. But it's a deal. All this has to be negotiated. Of the £1.8 billion cost, 45% is being sought from the UK and Holyrood governments.
What we'll do now is sit down with the governments, with the senior civil servants, with ministers, work through the detail of the business cases that have been pulled together so far, and out of that we'll get a good set of projects and investments that will deliver the outcomes for the region. In other words, more people into work and more people earning more money across the region.
City deals have already started for Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Inverness and Stirling. In money terms, the Tayside one is the second biggest. And there's a strong emphasis on fairness in the plan, aimed at giving people the opportunity to get into work, no matter who they are or where they're from. Craig Miller, STV News, Dundee.
A mother who was jailed for life for murdering her toddler son will have to wait to find out if her appeal against the conviction has been successful. Rachel Fee argues the judge in her trial last year misdirected the jury about the lesser charge of culpable homicide before sending them out to consider their verdict. Senior judges at the Court of Criminal Appeal said they would deliver their decision in due course. Aberdeen City Council has received 205 claims for compensation over the baby ashes scandal. All claims are now under consideration after the deadline passed on Wednesday. A national inquiry uncovered evidence that babies were cremated alongside adults at Hazelhead Crematorium. The centre of Stornoway was brought to a standstill earlier for a funeral of a prominent Lewis minister. The Reverend Dr Ian Campbell died in hospital in Glasgow last weekend following a short illness. The 53-year-old was a former moderator of the Free Church of Scotland.
His loss is greatly felt by the presbytery here, by the wider Free Church, by other denominations and by many, many people and communities throughout the country really, and even abroad, because he was an accomplished speaker as well at conferences, so all of these things mean that he'll be greatly missed.
8 people have been charged following incidents during and after a Scottish Cup match between Elgin City and Inverness Cally Thistle last month. Police say 4 males aged between 16 and 20 have been charged in connection with an alleged disturbance. 3 16-year-olds and a 22-year-old have also been charged for offensive behaviour. Finally, a survey shows 80% of young people still see working in the North Sea as a career option despite the downturn in the oil and gas sector. Some of the pupils who took part in the survey were attending the Subsea Expo in Aberdeen earlier.
For the first time, we've been talking to young people in the industry at an early age about how they see the industry and whether they see opportunities for them within that. And what's come out of that from the around 300 young people that we spoke to is that 81% of them think that there's a viable future in the industry in the North Sea.
And that's how it's looking tonight. There will be news bulletins throughout the weekend. Sean is here with the weather next. From all of us here, a very good night.
STV Weather, sponsored by Thompson. Good evening. The jet stream is all fired up, heading straight across the Atlantic at the moment. The weather's going to be fairly unsettled at times during this weekend for us. Low pressure dominating, storm system moving its way across France, but the weather does look quite a bit quieter later next week as high pressure starts to build across Scandinavia, and that could bring colder weather. But for the time being, it is going to stay quite unsettled. A lot of rain across central and western parts tonight, some of that on the heavy side across the northeast, largely dry with clear spells. Lows about 4 or 5 degrees. Now tomorrow we'll see that band of rain running northwards, also another band of rain coming into Shetland, sandwiched in between across Orkney and Caithness. Maybe not too bad a start today here, dry with sunny spells, but clouding over with some rain. But the wettest weather tomorrow across western parts, some strong winds across the Hebrides and the west coast later in the evening, windy all day across the northern Isles, possibility of gales, and we'll see snow falling above around 300 metres. So pretty horrible day to come tomorrow. Sunday looking a bit better, brightest weather in the west, a bit more cloud in the east. Night night.
STV Weather, sponsored by Thompson.